Hello my friends, welcome back for more Reddit stories. Today we have stories from RaisedByNarcissists. As usual, sit back, relax and enjoy. Let's go! 2 days ago I found out my disease I've had since I was 6 for 15 years was curable and my parents were lying to me. When I was around 6 I started developing eczema, or atopic dermatitis rashes around my hands and arms. Progressively, they've gotten worse, and now at 21, the rashes cover over 60% of my body, constantly bleeding, reacting painfully to movement or even water from showering. That's where I am at right now. I have a computer to type this on, but I'm in bed typing this with my thumbs on my phone. It's even on my palms and the tips of my fingers now. Growing up, I would ask my parents to take me to a doctor about it. They were both full-time workers with successful careers and plenty of income, but they even rejected an allergy screening while they bought a third car between themselves, a 2006 Miata convertible, citing how expensive it would be to test me. When I finally worked enough to get my own healthcare and took my screening, it was $20. By that point, however, I was already distancing myself. I knew something was wrong with me, but it told me for years and years that I was being over-dramatic, that these symptoms were in my head. When I was 19, still in college, they excommunicated me for questioning my gender identity and made me homeless. I'm now 21 and still haven't spoken with them since. Thankfully, I've been transitioning on my own with great success and have a great place to stay, so no worries there. 2 days ago, I responded to an advertisement for medical volunteers for atopic dermatitis research and met with the doctors. As it turns out, they are researching an injection and a pill-based medications that would merely be a comparator to medication that has been successful and FDA approved for years. For years, there has been an answer to my sleepless nights and bloody sheets, my inability to run or swim or exercise, my waking up to flaky, itchy skins all over my legs. At worst, I would maybe have watery eyes, but I would have had clear skin as early as middle school. The doctors criticized the weak medication my parents allowed me to take instead and cited their severe side effects and long-term issues, disgusted at my parents' neglect. It was the validation I've needed for 15 years. Had COVID-19 not been a concern, I'd have cried in their arms and not simply in my seat. I've been approved to begin participating as a volunteer for their medication and am being paid and covered for all related treatments. I've lost my job months ago due to my condition worsening beyond being capable of pretty much any jobs, so having essential free healthcare is accelerating. If I'd never distanced myself from my family, I'd probably never have had this medication. Suicidality is high in my level of severity, the nurses told me, and I believe it. Anyways, I just want to write this so that others can learn just how damaging and crippling it can be to not trust your children when they tell you they're sick for years. Overdramatic, my ass. A doctor stood up for me once and it was the only time I felt cared for. Basically, my narcissistic mom has always been the type of person that for some reason only she can be in pain, only she can have a hard life, only she can be in a tough spot, etc. This is important for context. One day I woke up with a terrible pain in my lower stomach. I thought it was period cramps, so I just laid there until she yelled at me to get out of bed. I did, but I had difficulty walking, which was very weird because usually I'm extremely strong for pain. She looks at me all disgusted and asks, "What are you being dramatic for?" And I said, "I don't know, I have a weird pain here." She went on a rant about how it's probably gas, how I'm being dramatic, how everyone from my star sign is so dramatic and made me take this medicine for gas, that making me walk around the house while watching me. I kept telling her it wasn't doing anything and that I was sure it wasn't gas, but she just kept shaking her head. An hour or so passed, I decided to call my grandpa and tell him what's happening. At that point, I was almost crying. I tell her I'm going to the hospital while she huffs and puffs, telling me I'll be humiliated because it was going to be just gas and how I was wasting everyone's time. But if it's so bad for you, go since you're a crying little baby. So we went. He stayed there with me. I did the exams and all of that. My grandpa had to leave because it was my cousin's birthday. Always her first, but that's another story. And my narcissistic mom came over to stay with me. We eventually went to the last doctor before being discharged, and she looked at the exams and went, "You have 5 kidney stones. The pain you were going through was renal colic. And it says here you didn't take the drip medicine, so you were just going through that awful pain?" My mom goes, "Oh no, she does that. I knew it had to be with gas." She goes, "Madam, renal colic is one of the worst pains and it has nothing to do with gas. You making her walk around the house probably worsened the situation, if anything." We were discharged and she didn't look at me until the end of the day. My mom comes to visit after I gave birth and expected to kick my husband out and sleep in our bed. This happened years ago, but I remembered because I was reminiscing about my son's birth, and unfortunately happy memories are, like most, sprinkled with bad ones because of my toxic parents. My son was a few days old and my mother invited herself to go be with me for a few days. I was living with my husband and his mother. Days were peaceful when it was just us, so she shows up and does start helping. She cooks for me and helps watch the baby so I can catch up on sleep. Everything is going fine, and for a brief moment I let my guard down and begin fantasizing how she's going to be a good mom to be from then and now that I'm a mom too. Boy, was I wrong. My husband comes home from work and we begin settling for bed for the night. I give my mom a pillow and a blanket for the sofa and she looks at me incredulously. She then tells me she thought she was going to sleep on our queen-size bed. I tell her that's my bed and my husband's bed. And she goes, "He can sleep in the living room instead. I want the bed." I tell her no. My husband, who hates her, just walks past and lays down to sleep. My mother, then like a petulant child, begins whining how she isn't going down there with the dog like she's not important. My mother-in-law comes out of her room and asks what's happening. I tell her nothing and say goodnight and close the door on my mom. I wake up 2 hours later because my son had woken up and this woman hasn't left the second floor and is rocking on my rocking chair, crying hysterically. I ignore her and go use the bathroom. On my way back, I tell her I got enough drama on my hands, I don't need any from her, and close the door. In the morning, she was gone. She had taken a taxi to the station and off she went. Years later, she never brought up. It was just one of her many irrational tantrums for the stupidest things. So those were the stories for today's video. If you enjoyed it, a thumbs up would be highly appreciated. If you want to see more videos like these, check out my channels. We have tons of stories there for you to enjoy, and I will see you in the next one.